Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is going on, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome to another NFL Draft Roundtable 2025 edition. This is Kaleb Johnson, third-round draft pick out of Iowa. Already looks good in that black and gold. I'm Jeff Hartman. Joining me, Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. Dave, what's going on?
Not too much, Jeff. It's way past your bedtime. I'm surprised you're doing so well with us here this evening, but it was a long wait to get to 83. But you know what? Pretty excited about it, so it feels kind of worth it when it's all said and done.
Bryan, what's up?
So I have a theory that once you get past that long wait, when you do not have that pick, then everything's easier because we fear that long wait and we fear that we're going to miss out on so many things. But when you go back and remember the fact that the reason that you've had those long waits, like in 2020, it's because your first round pick was Minkah Fitzpatrick. And in 2025, your second round pick is DK Metcalf. So it makes you feel a whole heck of a lot better. And now that that's gone, the draft will just flow evenly now. So you're not going to have those long chasms in your draft day. And it's over. It's like the bye week for me. Once you hit Monday after the bye, then bye week's
Business
over and you're back to business. You don't have that chasm.
Yes, because the Steelers have on day 3, which is rounds 4 through 7, they have one pick in every single round. So the Steelers won't have another round like round 2, which felt like forever for me. But still, for a lot of people out there, the Steelers get their guy. And when I say they get their guy, it's a position of need, running back. And it's a player that a lot of people, I know Jeremy Betts he's ecstatic. He's absolutely thrilled with the selection. And someone like Jeremy, this is a dream draft. That's what we said on the live stream. He got Derek Hartman, one of his favorite players in this draft. That's round 1. And then round 3, their second pick of the selection process, they get Kaleb Johnson. Dave, what's your knee-jerk reaction to this pick?
My knee-jerk reaction to this pick is they got someone that I didn't expect to be there. I mean, I asked the question on the live stream. I don't even know that you were in there at the time, Jeff. And I'm like, all right, we've reached this point. Is there a player that you would trade up to? I mean, we were about halfway through the second round, maybe into the 20-some picks, right around where the Steelers would have had a pick. So, all right, if the Steelers were to trade up at this point, who would you want them to take? What did Jeremy Betts say? Kaleb Johnson.
Yeah.
And what did they get at 83? Kaleb Johnson. There are some places like I know Bleacher Report, because that's where I did a lot of my searching and stuff for Mock Draft Mondays, because they actually had stuff out there when I started it so long ago in January. They had him as RB3. They had him as the third running back. They had him as 39 overall. There were a number of people that had him as a player that they had in the early to mid second round. And the Steelers got him in just past the mid third round. And I think it's a great fit from everything that I've seen. And I'm really excited about it.
All right, Bryan, what was your knee-jerk reaction?
I loved it. When I saw it, I was like, beautiful. And we've already made the jokes on how great he looks in that uniform, because if you don't know, the way back in the day, they asked permission to go ahead and use those, mimic the Pittsburgh Steelers jerseys and what they did to for this current style that looks so similar. But back to the pick, I like it because you knew you weren't going to get Travion. You knew you weren't going to get Keenshawn. Those Ohio State Buckeye boys were not going to be there whatsoever. And they went very early. They're in the AFC, but that's fine. You knew, I mean, not having a second round pick did not cost you those guys. So this is a situation where they wanted a running back high. They wanted to take care of needs, and now everybody's saying, okay, but there's a big need for quarterback. Why not there? But we had this discussion. Dave made a comment about it, and I agreed with him that, the difference between a third-round running back and a third-round quarterback, I mean, it's not even close. I look at a third-round quarterback as a sixth-round running back. This is high for a running back these days. So if you get one in the third round, you can have a bell cow. You've seen the Steelers do very well with guys that were not picked up high. But the big thing that I loved the most when I heard about this pick is 21 touchdowns last year. He has a nose for the end zone and 6.4 yards per rush. Biggest problem with Najee Harris was he was always under that 4.0.
I know a lot of fans out there, and we'll talk about this now while the draft is still going on. We're in the tail end of round 3. A lot of fans wanted the Steelers to go with a quarterback in round 3. And I don't know if this was because of the talking heads out there, but here's the way it's played out, just so everyone's clear. Round 2, Tyler Shuck goes to the New Orleans Saints. And then in round 3, Jalen Milroe goes to Seattle. Everyone thinks Cleveland is going to take Shedeur Sanders. No, they take Dylan Gabriel out of Oregon. And so now you have Will Howard, Kyle McCord, Shedeur Sanders, all still on the board.
Hughes.
Who?
Hughes.
Quinn Ewers out of Texas. Yeah.
He's still there, right? I don't know.
Yeah, he's still available. He's still available. Now, like for instance, the Raiders are drafting now. They just took Caleb Rogers out of Texas Tech. They have another pick right after it.
Because we're in the compensatory picks. That was
Correct.
the second compensatory pick of this draft that you first get to them when they get to the third round. We're in the very end of it.
So clearly the Pittsburgh Steelers organization said either they don't value these quarterbacks or they don't value the position at this juncture of the draft. And so what they want to do is prioritize that position. And they thought running back was the biggest need. Caleb Johnson was the best fit in their opinion. People may disagree. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. But I think that this was a good pick. And it has me feeling, and I don't want to jump the gun and talk about day 3 so much. It has me feeling like, you know what happens in day 3 happens in day 3. Like it's positionally, if they get a quarterback, okay, that's fine. If they don't, if they go with other positions, do I have positions in my brain that I'd like to see them target? Yes. But I think this is a great pick. I'm not about to sit here and wax poetic like I know what this guy does. I don't. I did not watch 1 minute of Iowa football this year. I go by what people like. Our draft nicks here at Fans First Sports Network and Steel Curtain Network, Andrew and Jeremy. Andrew's not crazy about the pick. Jeremy loves the guy. I'm going to do my own homework. Dave, what do you think?
Andrew wasn't as crazy about it as he wanted the quarterback. He wanted Milroe.
Yeah.
In that pick. And honestly, I mean, my goodness, when you run for 1,537 yards and 21 rushing touchdowns, which was 23 total, that's pretty good. All right. And this is something that I found when I was doing the breaking news podcast. When they do consensus All-Americans and stuff like that, there was 2 running backs. It was Genty and Caleb Johnson.
Oh, very interesting.
Those were and that's why some people had him as the I don't know that anyone that even had him as 2, but some people had him as the 3rd best running back. I feel like the Steelers I almost feel like that they, I mean, yes, it is how it worked out, but my goodness, this could have been the Steelers' pick at pick 52 if they would have traded their 3rd round pick for DK Metcalf. They might have still taken him in that spot. So because when that pick came up on the live stream, I asked people, okay, here you go. You see who's available. Who would you have taken here? That was because Jeremy Betts was saying Caleb Johnson all night. So of course he was. And it was really interesting there. So Bryan's happy because his massive tackle from William and Mary just went to his beloved Raiders. So I know that's why he's smiling right now, right?
That is why I'm smiling. I'm smiling because the Mammoth guy, he is going to be just fun. Yeah, he's going to be fun to cover.
Yeah. So, but really, I feel like, but you got to also remember what people were saying about running back. It's really what you wanted out of the position because there were so many that offered so many different skills. And when I'm sitting there and reading what they had to say on NFL.com and Bleacher Report that says, Caleb Johnson's rushing success revolves around patience, vision, and finishing power. I mean, to me, that's like, this is Le'Veon Bell. Jeremy said, like a Bijan Robinson. They had a DeMarco Murray as a comparison I saw somewhere. So I think this might be a really good fit for Pittsburgh. I'm doing what I always do, or almost always do, and that is get excited about a pick after the Steelers make it. And you really can get excited about that player because now I know they're wearing black and gold, not just for his 3 years in Iowa, but now he's going to be at least 4 years in Pittsburgh and hopefully more.
What are your thoughts, Bryan?
Yeah, this is a guy that I'm so excited about because I did know a little bit about him, and watching Big Ten football a lot, like I do. I had an opportunity to pay attention to the Iowa Hawkeyes over the years, and I really like what Kaleb Johnson brings to the Steelers. And I go back to that yards per carry, which was a problem with Najee Harris all those years. Now, this is not talking ill of the player that's no longer here, but that was always a problem. But one of the reasons why he always had the positive yardage numbers is because he was leading in carries. This guy doesn't have to, lead the league in carries. He doesn't have to, but he's going to be a nice 1-2 punch with a guy with who you have there with Jaylen Warren. This means Kenny Gainwell could be that specialist guy. It leaves Cordero Patterson.
That was going to be a question I was going to ask.
And I think it leaves him out in the cold. And it's, I think it's about 1.2 or $2 million more dollars under the cap that you can play with. But it's you've seriously upgraded the running back room in the off season with both of these guys, with a free agent pickup, but mostly you can see the Steelers with a future bell cow right here that doesn't have to be the bell cow, but you're going to want them to be. Somebody went ahead in the live chat and compared him to Le'Veon Bell as a 2.0. I don't want to go that far, but you're fairly close.
Have we ever seen a running back like Le'Veon Bell since
No,
Le'Veon
I don't think
Bell?
it's to that extreme.
That's what I mean.
No.
Like, his patience was,
but
you're close.
I don't know if you guys saw this where they were already interviewed him with the media. He says Le'Veon Bell is who he what's the word for it? Models his game after. There you go. Yeah.
So, Dave, I'll throw it to you for this next question, and that is, how do you kind of envision the workload between these three backs now? You got Johnson. A lot of people are calling him a bell cow. Jaylen Warren's never had the opportunity to get the majority of carries, and then Kenny G. What do you think, Dave?
This is what I think. I think this is how it will start off, and then you will see it. And then you got to see how everyone's doing, and be willing to pivot throughout the season. I think Jaylen Warren is your number one running back. I think Kaleb Johnson is your short yardage back, because that's one of the that's what I was saying. Got to make sure you get a guy that can do short yardage. A guy that you think that 3rd and 1 can go out and get you the first down. 4th and goal on the half-yard line, and it's not just about jumping up over the top. And that's one thing that I did see about him that I'm trying to find it overall. Where they had it is that, there it says his running style and build make him an ideal short yardage / red zone back. I think you're going to see him that it's going to be simple. The Steelers they're not going to Najee Harris him, where he's going to be the guy on the field for 7 million carries in his rookie season. I think they are going to utilize Jaylen Warren, but it's not like he's not going to be on the field. It's another one of those positions that you can actually get on the field and be in certain situations. And I think a lot of it's going to depend on how the schedule, because we don't have a schedule yet until the middle of May, but it's going to be that maybe through those first 4 games, you're going to see him maybe just limited to specific things. And then you're going to see how things are going. And if he gives you the best chance, then he should see his workload increase. I think that's how they'll handle it. And I think that's how they should handle it.
That's fair. What about you, Bryan? What do you think about the workload?
It's you're going to go in with Jalen Warren as your guy. Yeah. And then Kaleb Johnson will slowly take over. And then Kenny Gainwell's your guy that is your change of pace. He is your third down back. It almost reminds me of the good old days when you've got a 1 and 2, and then you had Veron Haynes when it was 3rd and 14. But a guy like Kenny Gainwell he can get 14 because he is a speedy guy. This was a guy that a lot of people were talking about years ago when he was maybe a sleeper for the Steelers, and in a 4th round pick. They have him now for 1 year. It'll be interesting. I think he's a nice piece of the puzzle. I do want to say one more thing here about Kaleb Johnson. We've got our boy Tate Boys. Mr. Tate is in the house, and he thinks he's comparing him to a guy like Arian Foster. And so Arian Foster, he wasn't drafted. I don't think he was drafted at all in the NFL draft. Tennessee? I think he was undrafted out of Tennessee. If not, he was drafted very late, if I'm not mistaken. He was drafted high in the movie Draft Day. I will say that. But I like how Kevin Tate says that he compares to Arian Foster. And if you get a player like Arian Foster, you've got a good player. Good situation in running back. I think no longer do you have the defensive line as a question. No longer do you have the running backs as a question. In fact, I think running backs actually become a strength now for this team with this pick.
Ooh. I was going to say...
Hold that thought, Dave. Hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk about how this works, how this might look in the offense in 2025, the offensive line, and are they ready to actually lay the foundation for these running backs? We'll do that right after this break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, Steeler fans, thank you all for being patient. And we want to talk about how this is going to not just work in terms of a workload, which we already discussed in the first half of the show. I want to talk about this offensive line because unlike Derek Hartman, who can be a one-man wrecking crew on the defensive line and kind of do it himself at times, running backs, those are very rare. Those running backs that can, if you're like Barry Sanders, who played kind of horrible line, he's still going to make the plays. Dave, do you think this offensive line that the Steelers are constructing is going to be good enough to open the holes for any of these running backs, not just Kaleb Johnson?
Yeah, because Bryan said that I can't remember exactly what you said about the offensive line. And I was going to, I don't know if you said.
I didn't say anything about the offensive line. I said the running backs could be now a strength.
No, I think you said the offensive line isn't a concern. I think you actually did say that because I perked up.
Defensive line.
Oh, defensive. Oh, okay.
Is no longer a concern because of the first pick and now running back.
Gotcha. Well, because I was going to say, here's the thing when it comes to the offensive line. It's not that it's not a concern, but it's also not going to be a question. But it's not like it's going to be a question about who's playing there. Unless you're dealing with injury. It's not like the Steelers are going out and adding to this offensive line. If this offensive line is going to be better, it's going to be not through the changing players. It's going to be through player improvement and cohesiveness. That's how this line's going to need to improve this year. I mean, at this point, the Steelers aren't going to be in the 4th round picking someone who they expect to come in and start on the line. They're just not going to do that. So it's not in the cards right now. So it is what it is. They just have to play better. And that's why I've brought this up about the line. They're all in their second, or all but one are in their second or third year. So they're all kind of this coming of age and being of, are you really a quality NFL player all at the same time? It could be phenomenal. It could be a disaster. and it could be a bunch of stuff, bunch of places in between. So really, that's the bigger question when it comes to the Steelers, not who's on the offensive line, but how are they going to play?
Fair. Bryan, anything to add to that?
Yeah, you know what? I've actually a lot to add to that. Remember a couple weeks ago when Mike Tomlin was asked, "Do you feel comfortable with your offensive line?" And I don't know exactly what the question was, but what he said was, "I don't know." And the reason he doesn't know, it's simple, because you had 6 quarters of Troy Fautanu. You're moving Broderick Jones from the right to the left side, and Mason McCormick wasn't either he wasn't completely ready for prime time or he hit a rookie wall. He had a decent year, but he had some rookie mistakes. The only one that you feel really comfortable with is Zach Frazier going into a second year. And even Isaac Seumalo is a little bit of a question mark because he had some injury problems last year and his play suffered a little bit, maybe because of those injury problems. So there's a lot of question marks on the line. There's not a whole lot of depth there. So if you do get an injury, you're kind of in trouble. So you might see some day 3 action on the offensive line, but they still knew how to open holes. And a lot of these guys that they have on the offensive line are, in a way, stronger at opening holes than they are protecting the quarterback, as far as I'm concerned.
Now, I want to ask a question, and this is something that Bryan actually asked in the live stream, and he was unfairly criticized for asking this question. But I feel like this means that the writing's on the wall, that there's no need for Cordero Patterson anymore. Dave, you agree?
No.
That'll save him.
No, I agree. No, there's no need for him. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like $2 million they might save, or less than.
And after displacements, less than $1 million.
Okay, less than $1 million.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
crap.
because the let's see, I have it. I should have it right here in front of me. Actually, no, it wasn't from where my computer shut down. Where I have my salary cap spreadsheet. But yeah, it's like it's already over. The number 51 contract for the Steelers is over $1 million.
Okay.
So by bumping, by getting rid of him, 52 that comes up is 1.03 million. So even if it's 2.5 that they would save, it would be less than 1.5 when it's all said and done. But at the same time, so whether they cut him now or cut him or keep him through camp and then decide they don't want him then, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. So Bryan, there's the answer to the question.
Yeah, I just don't think I like the guy, but there's probably no reason to keep him. But here's a new question that I have, and it's not about the running back position, but in a way it is. So another reason I think the running back position could be so much better is because you have the wide receivers that are going to go ahead and keep defenses from stacking the box. And now, does the fact that you've gotten through day 2, does this put the George Pickens talk to rest as far as right now? I think right now that you can consider George Pickens as far as I'm concerned, you can consider him a Pittsburgh Steeler for 2025.
Yeah, I would agree with that unless he starts acting a fool, maybe, and the Steelers are saying, okay, trade us a 2026 pick and we'll ship him. Like, that would be the only way. But then that's when I would say, Dave has said this a lot, well, now you're just creating the same problem you had in 2024.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, they might be saying, well, if he's, let's say he's not showing up to anything, he's not participating in training camp, like, and the Steelers say, look, we don't need this big. And so someone says, we'll send you a 5th rounder in 2026 for George Pickens. I take him. Fine. Well, then you're screwed because now you don't have the draft to lean on. But I think that it's a safe bet unless he does something stupid that he'll be on the roster this year.
And for the rest of this weekend, I think you can put that to bed for draft.
I don't think, I agree, because second round's over. They didn't have a pick. They didn't, they stayed with that. I don't think that
You're not trading George Pickens for a day 3 pick because you can't replace him with a day 3 pick.
And the other thing to me, I think you owe it to yourself to see what Metcalf and Pickens could do together. You want to at least see them on the field together. And if things aren't going well, and that's when you have that deadline, like November 6th or whenever it is, you get more out of a player at that deadline than you do right now.
Yes,
absolutely. And I think that it's also important to note that when you're talking about this stuff, they could do the T. Higgins route if they wanted. And that is, they could franchise George Pickens. And he might not like it. T. Higgins didn't like it. T. Higgins now has a big-time contract, but still, he didn't like it at first. They could absolutely do that if they wanted. Let's say George Pickens has a really good season, and they want to bring him back, and he and DK Metcalf are copacetic, and they get along, and they're fine. I don't know. That's down the road. Let's talk a little bit about this draft in day 3 and what you think the Steelers are going to do from here. Dave, I kind of mentioned how, like, for me, there's no real position of need that I'm like, they got to get this, they got to get that. What is a position, though, that you would want them to address potentially in one of their picks on day 3?
Want them to address. I don't know if the type of player is there that I really want them to add. I mean, they're good. They need a rookie quarterback to go into camp. But even if they do it after the draft, it's possible. But if the right guy's there in their next pick, that's fine to go ahead and do that. As we talked about on the live stream, that is when you're drafting a player to in hopes of they would have the Landry Jones role, not skill set, role. Right. Meaning the person that is your backup that is even considering signing to stick around and continue to be your backup. That's the kind of quarterback you'd be looking at. They're going to add a quarterback this weekend. The only question is if they use a pick to do it or not, in my opinion, because I don't think they're going to go out and sign 2 more, whether one of them is Mr. Ron or not. So I know what I would like, but that still doesn't matter. People say wide receiver. Honestly, when you look at the wide receiver room, I'm afraid taking anything after the 4th round is someone that could kind of get caught up in things and not make the team. I mean, seriously, the Steelers have the potential now. Let's say the Steelers took a quarterback in the 4th round, and he ends up being their 3rd quarterback this year. Okay. There's actually no position out there that I can think of at this moment where round 5 pick on would be someone who would be guaranteed to make the roster.
That's fair.
I mean,
that's fair.
Honestly, I mean, if you get somebody at a position that you think you're upgrading the bottom of your roster so that you can develop, go for it. But I mean, even if they took a quarterback in the 7th round, I don't know that they'd be guaranteed because they'd have to beat out Skylar Thompson as the 3rd guy and things of that nature. So there's really, I mean, you're really kind of in a position where if you got a guy that you think you can actually improve your room, I would be fine if they went defensive line again. And I would like somewhere on the offensive line. I would prefer guard. I know some people say swing tackle. I don't know that you would get your swing tackle. I think they believe that they signed their swing tackle in Calvin Anderson, and they still want to develop Dylan Cook. So, but I think they should at least do, look at adding an offensive lineman at some point is one of those where it could be someone who made the roster, but that's kind of where we are right now with it.
I will say this about the quarterbacks. Yeah, everyone's all hung up on like Omar Khan's comments about we want 4 quarterbacks at camp. They always do. Yeah. That's nothing new, first and foremost. Secondly, okay, so let's just say Aaron Rodgers plays. I mean, you have 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could get like a John Reese Plumlee again.
Yeah.
A drafted guy
exactly.
who's a receiver / quarterback. Like, there's your 4. Yeah. You know who the top 3 are going to be. Here we go. So I think sometimes people get hung up on some of the things that Omar Khan might say. Now, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't, that's a different story. Neither here nor there. Bryan, what's your take on all this?
All right. 3 words. Bravo, Papa, Alpha. BPA. best player available. I think that's where you go here. I do like the idea of another defensive lineman, and the guy that I have my eye on is a guy named J.J. Pegues out of.
Oh yeah, he's still out there.
He was a line mate of Walter Nolan at Ole Miss.
And a fullback.
He was a visit too.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And he was a visit. I forgot about the visit.
Yeah,
but
and a fullback. Remember, is he the guy
like
that's also a fullback?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I believe he's also fullback. Pegues is the kind of guy that I'd love to see you go for in round 4. And I would take it over the quarterback as well. I really would. I mean, that's something you can go. We always said double dipping at defensive line would be great. And they didn't do much in defensive line and free agency. Now, they brought a few guys in. You know, they brought the guy in from New England. They brought in a guy from Jacksonville. But to the point where I can't tell you their names. Well, I just can't pronounce the guy from Jacksonville. But I can't remember the guy's name from New England.
Daniel
Elawake. Or
yeah. I typed it for the article I had today.
so you know what? I mean, I could see them doing that. I want to see something in the secondary. I'd like to see that, just even if it's a Ryan Watts late, like they did last year, like a player like that late. We've seen it before. Who was the kid from? This is when you get an old, just guys from a couple years ago. The kid that they drafted late from Oklahoma, number 21. Trey Norwood. You know, if it's a guy like that you're bringing in just because, and I subscribe to the Dave Schofield day 3 philosophy on this, that if you're going to pick a guy in the 7th round, you are just picking him so they don't turn you down or somebody doesn't get away from you in the undrafted free agent realm. Because Chris Oladokun, I mean, why would anybody have gone to Pittsburgh when they spent a number 1 pick on Kenny Pickett and they had Mitch Trubisky there? Why would anybody want to go into that situation not thinking they had an opportunity to get a job? You'd want to go somewhere where you think you're going to get a job. So they took him and they said, you have to come here. You don't have a choice as an undrafted free agent. So, you know, I think that's what they look at with those 7th round picks. Not the 6th round pick. I think they could possibly swing them into being something good. But I agree with Dave. If it was up to me, I would trade all the 6th and 7th round picks and to move up, because I just think they're extra.
Fun fact. In the last 3 NFL, not talking 2025, in the previous 3 NFL drafts, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the only players that they have drafted that are not still on the roster are those 2 quarterbacks from 3 years ago, Kenny Pickett and Chris Oladokun. Everybody else is on the roster.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So,
all right.
And honestly, I said that about defensive line. The Steelers are really, really deep at defensive line, but they got a bunch of guys. They don't have dudes to steal the "here we go" terminology. All right. I mean, like, are you excited about Isaiah Loudermilk and Dean Lowry and DeMarvin Leal even? I mean, right when I did the depth chart, I put Montravius Adams 4th because he might be the more natural nose tackle, and then I put the guy from the Patriots 5th. But then Leal and Loudermilk and stuff. That's where they are. So it's not that they don't have plenty. I mean, they have 12 defensive tackles on the roster right now. They've got a ton. But yet I still think that at this point in the draft, they could even draft someone to upgrade the bottom of that depth chart. So that's the only one that's the only reason I said that. But if they didn't touch defensive line again, they would still be fine.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So, all right, let's do some final thoughts here on this 3rd round pick, day 2 selection of Kaleb Johnson. Bryan, I'll let you go first.
Filippone gives him a C-. That means he's going to be good.
Oh, I love that final thought. Dave, I'll let you go. What's your final thoughts on the pick?
It is getting late. We had to wait so long. I am so tired. I've hit that so tired I'm wired moment.
I like that. That's a t-shirt.
Yeah. There you go. That it's just interesting. Now we just got to wait till noon tomorrow to get this thing going again. Give me more guys to get excited about. I'm sure there's going to be within the next 2 or 3 picks, somebody I've never heard of. And I can't wait to be excited because they're going to be a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Steelers have done a good job addressing needs. Whether you think those are the best players available, that's debatable because the Steelers view things their way, and we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But that's it. I want to remind everyone, day 3 is tomorrow. It starts at noon Eastern time. We will be here again, not just for a roundtable. I don't think Bryan will be here, but Dave and I will be here for the roundtable, which will wrap up all of the draft picks on day 3. We might have another person join us. We'll have to wait and see. Also, the live stream will be happening. We're going to have some very special guests coming on. I know Dave's partner on Pittsburgh Standard Time, Greg Benevent's going to join us for a bit. Roy Countryman's going to join us from the Black and Gold Blueprint. He's definitely a guy that knows a lot of these day 3 prospects. So if you're curious about that, go check out the live stream. That'll start at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. And for the love of all things holy, check out steelcurtainnetwork.com. I think you're really going to like that content. steelcurtainnetwork.com, totally free. Go give it a shot. You'll see writing from all 3 of us and a bunch of others. So that does it. Dave, until tomorrow, man. I guess you have to send us off. Is there anything else you want to add?
No.
Good. Good. We'll see you tomorrow, day 3 of the draft.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.